Thank you, everyone. Welcome once again. Let me acknowledge the Honorable Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerrit, as well as the Honorable Minister with Responsibility for Health, Honorable Kasani Laville, the General Manager of DOMLEC, Mrs. Bertilia McKenzie. We also have with us Dr. Irving McIntyre, Honorable Melissa Skerrit, Honorable Roland Royer, Senator Kent Edwards. The Cabinet Secretary is with us this morning, as well as the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, and I see Ms. Dennis Edwards, the Financial Secretary. Good morning to you, members of the media. At this point, I invite the Honorable Prime Minister to address us.
Morning, everybody. Morning, press, and all listeners and viewers. Today is the 6th anniversary of the passage of Hurricane Maria. I believe it is a time of reflection for the country and the devastation wrought by this hurricane in Dominica. Significant, unprecedented destruction. There are many who said, and for good reason, that it would have taken us over 20 years to rebuild. We did so in quick time, in rebuilding all lives and livelihoods. It has been very costly in fixing homes, and the sheer amount of funds that was used to clear roads and streets and dredging of rivers and ravines. The number of homes that had to be rebuilt, and schools, health clinics, the funds that had to be spent to keep people at work and in work, paid for by the Treasury, even in the private sector. We paid the salaries of many private sector employees because it was always our view in the government that people needed to go home with a wage and a salary to maintain the dignity of the human being. And so we thank God for his efforts at helping us with our reconstruction and our rebuilding. And I think that we all would accept that this country made tremendous strides in our response to the hurricane. In large measure, we had to expend our own funds in the reconstruction. And luckily for us at the time, we had a significant amount of monies saved that we were able to use immediately to buy food and other supplies and to help people fix their homes and clear the roads and the streets. As you know, we had about $380 million saved. And I was, in fact, saving that money with the intention of paying off our national debt and to reduce our debt to GDP ratio to about 20%. And the intention was to force the government now that all of what we're paying for debt, that would still be continually paid and paid into a special account, so that we always had savings that we could use in terms of natural disasters or to help the economy to withstand external shocks. But obviously we had to use those funds to help people at a particular time. And then we had over $200 million also saved for the construction of the international airport. As you know, we were saving $5 million US every month. And those funds had to be used, and we waited for a long time before we used them. But we eventually had to use the funds to help so many families who were impacted by the hurricane. So we had about $600 million saved. at the time of the hurricane, and this is what we're able to use to front load the reconstruction efforts in the country. And so I want us to be in a prayerful and reflective mode in the country. That sometimes we, when these disasters come by, we concern and we're each other's brothers' keepers. But once the situation subsides and we're back to a sense of normalcy, then we go back to our ways of appearing to be divisive and divided among ourselves. So the reality is hurricanes are going to come more frequently and more ferociously. That's what the science is saying. And this is why we take our call for the developed world to do more in responding to the impacts of climate change on us. They have made promises in the Paris Agreement. Every COP summit, there are promises made by the developed world. We started off many years ago with they saying, well, they needed to provide us with grants to build mitigation against storms and to build resilience. Then they moved to saying loans, and they moved to green bonds. They moved now to saying that the private sector will do investments. I'm not sure which private sector firm is going to build a sea defense wall or to build a hospital for governments. And really and truly, the developed world is not living up to their expressed and agreed promises. And so we go into COP28. So you tell you how many COP meetings that we've had. And we go to COP28 in December in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. And every time a COP conference comes up, summit comes up, we ask ourselves, should we go? Isn't that a waste of money to go? But you can not give up on fighting against an injustice. If our forebears were to say, well, too many people died in attempts for emancipation, and therefore let us just agree that we will remain slaves for the rest of our lives, we will not be here as free black people or free people in the world. And so it's an injustice that we have to continue to fight. What I always say to Caribbean people in particular is that this must not appear to be a fight only for the government. We must recognize that it must be a fight for all of us to play our part. And there is not this sense that that we in the Caribbean, Dominica included, understand or appreciate or accept the impact that climate change is having and will continue to have on the way of life. And therefore, it's important for us to lend our voices in calling on the international community to play their part in addressing the issues. I mean, of a small country like ours, 226% of your GDP affected. You're an island, so you're not on a continent, and you have many states within your country, or provinces within your country, that one province could help the other if in case a disaster were to happen. We only have ourselves. We get help from friendly governments and institutions, but at the end of it, we only have ourselves. And therefore, it's important for this fight not to be seen to be a government fight, but a fight for all of us to be part of, because this is one of the existential threats to us as a nation. And so let us take this moment to reflect on where we were on the morning of September 19, when we woke up to the reality of the impact of the natural disaster, Hurricane Maria, on us. Many gave up, knowing that all of what they worked for was washed away and blown away, and so it is not something that we should lament upon, but it is something we believe that we need to reflect upon and to remind us of the need for us to be grateful as a nation and show gratitude, not to the leaders of the nation, but to the Lord who gives us life and who provides us with whatever we have. And so it's important for us to give reverence to the Lord for his many blessings, because certainly there are many who thought that we will not be where we are today. But by the grace of God, we have made progress and be able to withstand this shock. So thank you very much, and I do hope that we can engage ourselves in some prayerful reflection. I want first to extend condolences to the family of the infant who was the victim of the unfortunate drowning in Collio yesterday. I know that this is a very devastating loss like no other for his parents and others and other relatives. And I pray for strength and healing for them in this most difficult moment. May God grant them the comfort that they need and the strength that they need to really deal with this tragic loss. And my thoughts and that of my family are with them, and I do intend to visit the family sometime this week. One can only appreciate the grief that they're going through. My prayers and sympathies are also with the family and friends of others who succumbed due to various circumstances over the weekend. We also send condolences to the family of former superintendent of the Methodist Church, Reverend William Watty, who passed away on Sunday. Dr. Watty was a Dominican citizen of great standing who worked as a Methodist minister in Dominica, the Caribbean, and the United Kingdom. May his soul rest in eternal peace. I am very much aware that the thing that is most pressing on the minds of every Dominican is DOMLEC and load shedding. And this is why I brought in the general manager of DOMLEC so we can speak to the country about the challenges they're having and what strategies they intend to employ to help alleviate the impact of a drop in generation capacity is having on the country and residents. And of course, I've also invited the Minister of Health, who will speak briefly on the issues at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital. I just met this morning with the board of DOMLEC to hear from them, because as you know, though DOMLEC is, the government has much majority shares in DOMLEC, it still remains a company, and I try not to get involved in the day-to-day management of this company, notwithstanding that the state may own it wholly or partly. But the issue of load shedding is having an impact on the country, and I have taken note of the comments and the discomfort of citizens, and so we are providing the necessary support to DOMLEC from the government standpoint. And I've asked the board to advise me on the actions that they are going to take in the immediate to address the immediate challenges of load shedding, and what are the recommendations and strategy for the medium term, albeit while we wait for the introduction of geothermal some years down the road. I met with the president of Venezuela on Saturday in Cuba, and I have, on behalf of DOMLEC, made requests of them for some support. They are in touch with DOMLEC directly from Saturday, moments after the meeting ended with the president. Venezuela has been in touch with DOMLEC. And it is the intention of Venezuela to send a team of mechanical and electrical engineers to Dominica tomorrow to assist DOMLEC in looking at the challenges they're having, and with a view of providing whatever support we will need to address the issue in the immediate term and the medium term. We also discussed with the board and management of DOMLEC the issue of the procurement of new generators for DOMLEC to address the situation in the medium term, because I'm sure the general manager will tell you that some of the generators are old, and therefore we need to address this matter in in a systemic and constructive manner. And so the manager will speak to these matters, but it is an issue that is taking up my time, rightly so, and I'll be meeting with the board on a regular basis to receive updates from them to ensure that we can arrest and address the situation of load shedding that's taking place. There are some strategies that DOMLEC will be employing, and I will leave it to the general manager to speak to those technical details. But just to say to the country that I am looking at this and we're doing everything possible. I said we will assist DOMLEC in procuring generators, because if DOMLEC were to procure those generators themselves, there will be an increase in tariff, an increase in cost to the consumers, and we're trying to mitigate against that. And so the board will advise on what engagement you would like to have with the government in assisting it in procuring those generators. Obviously, these are not generators that you can just buy. They're already available. You can buy them, and even if they're already available, there are some accessories that you would need to procure to allow it to be part of the DOMLEC grid system, generation system. So something like this take a couple of months to get ready, and of course shipping time and so forth. But this is something that we will certainly hear from the board on and take it forward. Obviously, based on what DOMLEC is saying to me, that they have seen an increase in demand. So it's not only because of the heat, but there's an increase in demand because of, I guess, of the growing of the economy and people utilizing more energy. So there is a real increase in demand, and with generators that are old, then you could have issues, and of course the hydro situation with the dropping of the water level and so forth. But we will provide all necessary support to DOMLEC, and we look forward to the team coming in. As a matter of fact, in addition to the Venezuelan team, we worked with DOMLEC to bring in someone who came in yesterday, and that expert is also assisting DOMLEC in looking at the immediate challenges that they're having, and to see what kind of support they can provide to DOMLEC, advice rather, to DOMLEC to addressing it. So we're not going to leave any stone unturned to ensure that we can do everything possible to addressing that issue. It's an issue that is occupying my time, and I'm hoping to meet back with the board and senior management during the course of this week again, because I've asked that they meet. I met with them last week, and I've asked them to meet again this week, so that they can take some firm decisions insofar as what the government can do. Because I don't want to assume the management of DOMLEC. I am here to assist from the government standpoint to addressing the situation confronting the country. And of course, we have Creole Festival coming up, when there'll be a high use of energy, and therefore we have to ensure that we can address those issues way in advance of Creole Festival. Certainly no, but definitely way in advance of Creole Festival, so we do not have the situation occurring and so forth. It is not necessarily a straightforward issue, so I don't want to give anybody the impression that it's a straightforward issue. But every effort will be made to address this issue. So I ask the country to have some patience for the next few days while we work out the challenges and overcoming those challenges. There are many other issues I would like to raise with you, but I believe this is the main issue confronting Dominicans. I wanted to speak to you about the Citizens by Investment Program and some additional actions we're taking. For example, with the engagement of an international firm, accounting firm that we're hoping to conclude negotiations with and sign an agreement with, to come in to do a comprehensive audit of our program, among other actions that I'd like to share with you. But maybe later in the week I could speak to that on this issue, and my visit to the Grotto Home and to the infirmary, and some of the challenges they have, and some of the strategies that we're going to be employing from the government standpoint to help them overcome those perennial challenges and to put them on a better footing to be able to provide better and improved care to the residents who are residing at those two very important institutions. And there are other things I'd like to speak with you about, but I will invite the General Manager of DOMLEC to share with you, and then the Minister for Health, who will speak to you briefly on the hospital. Thank you very much.
Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, Honorable Kasani Laville, Honorable Minister of Finance, and other ministers present, the Financial Secretary, the Cabinet Secretary, Cabinet Secretary, other government officials, Press Secretary, the media, Dominica, good morning. I know that some members of the media are very happy to be seeing me within quick succession, because I spoke to the media on Thursday afternoon, I believe. And just to continue from what I said, and just to reiterate what I said, we are facing a generation shortfall due to an aging generation fleet, over 10 megawatts of generation that is in the diesel section past due for retirement, an extremely dry season. And so we are facing a generation shortfall. It bears repeating. What are the solutions? The government of the Commonwealth of Dominica has provided an 800 kilowatt generator. And I said at the press conference that would have been commissioned, it would have been brought online on September 15th. And it was in fact brought online on September 15th. We've also secured, as PM has mentioned, a generation consultant from St. Lucia. I met with him this morning as to his terms of reference, and he has commenced working. It's a consultant by the name of Elford Felix. It was really good, a very good generation background, just in case anybody feels the need to go and research his capability. We are also going to bring on about 3 megawatts of generation from internal sources. DOMLEC has what you call interruptible agreements with some commercial customers where we ask them to get off the grid. That is already in place, and that is about 0.5 of a megawatt, half of a megawatt. We're going to extend that, and we want to bring on very soon 3 megawatts of generation from using generators on island. Additionally, 3 megawatts, of temporary generation will be brought in from out of Dominica. And the purchase, as PM mentioned, of about initially just over 5 megawatts of generation, and then after discussion takes place, we will decide how much more needs to be brought on. One of the things I forgot to mention, but PM ably dealt with that, and that had to do with the assistance from Venezuela, the technical assistance from Venezuela. As a matter of fact, the ambassador did speak to me and asked what exactly the specifics were, and I provided that to him, and that was initiated by PM. Mechanical and electrical engineering expertise from Venezuela coming in tomorrow, Tuesday. And so we're not just not doing anything, a lot of stuff is happening. And as I promised the media on Thursday, we will be meeting with the media more frequently, at least I said twice a week. And I said that, it could be before. that we'll be meeting with the media to keep them apprised of what's going on. And so basically that's what I have to share at this point, and at the right time, well, through you, I'll take the questions pertaining to DOMLEC.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Mackenzie, for the update on what DOMLEC is doing to address the very current and pressing issue. As she said, after we've heard from the Minister for Health, we will open the floor for questions, and you're free to follow up with Mrs. Mackenzie. So at this point, I welcome the Honorable Cassania Laville, who is the Minister for Health, Wellness, and Social Services, to provide us with an update on operations at both the main hospital in Goodwill and the Marigot Hospital.
Thank you very much, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister, Cabinet colleagues, senior government officials, the media, listeners and viewers on various platforms, the Dominicans, all of you, blessings and good morning. Let me also, in the same spirit as the Honorable Prime Minister this morning, let me recognize the strength and the resilience of the good people of this nation. After, well, on the anniversary of Hurricane Maria, it is through these moments that our character, our strength, and our resolve is truly tested. And we have proven a few years later, certainly, that we are indeed a virtuous people and government. It is my pleasure to report that the Marigot Hospital is now opened. Delivery of services under Phase 1 commenced on Monday, September 11th, 2023 at 8 a.m. As part of Phase 1, the hospital offers 24-hour urgent care services from 8 to 4 and on-call services thereafter. Scheduled specialist clinics in the areas of pediatrics, surgery, internal medicine, obstetrics and gynecology, ophthalmology, and orthopedics are being offered by appointment and referral daily from 9 a.m. These clinical services are also being supported by diagnostic laboratory services, X-ray, as well as pharmaceutical support and dispensing of medication. The Dominica Hospital's authority is expected to share soon a schedule of daily clinics. The hospital's authority will also provide all contact numbers for the Marigot Hospital. However, a few important ones are reception 266-2200, the administration office 266-2201, and accident and emergency reception 266-2213. Just for the first week, numerous patients visited the hospital for specialist appointments, and several accessed the 24-hour urgent care facility. Besides the clinical and nursing staff, the hospital is run with support staff such as domestic workers, orderlies, radiographer, pharmacists, and maintenance technicians. We are also pleased to have the presence of police officers as security. The Marigot Hospital will be formally commissioned on the first week of October with an official ceremony. The government is pleased with this significant milestone as it reflects our unwavering commitment to the well-being of our citizens. We are dedicated to ensuring that everyone has access to quality healthcare, and the reopening of the Marigot Hospital will significantly improve access to healthcare in that region. This achievement is a testament to our government's responsiveness to the needs of our people, and we're excited about the positive impact that this will have on the wider community. I will now address at this time recent developments involving a group of medical officers at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital who reported feeling unwell some days last week. On the evening of Monday, September 11th, I was approached by a medical officer from the Dominica China Friendship Hospital who requested a meeting on behalf of a group of medical officers. I consented to their request despite having parliamentary duties at 10 a.m. the following day, accompanied by the hospital CEO and the hospital medical director. I met with the medical officers at 8 a.m. The representative expressed gratitude for a prompt response and proceeded to outline the various challenges medical officers face in a dynamic environment. The officer emphasized that there appeared to be staffing constraints among the medical officers, thereby causing an environment where those who are on duty are in turn overworked and stressed. The main issue, as expressed by the medical officers, was that the A&E department had 11 officers assigned normally. However, at this time, they were operating with 5 medical officers due to various issues, mostly associated with vacation leave, sick leave, short-term training, and temporary reassignment of a medical officer. The medical officers at the meeting presented the following recommendations to address their challenges. 1. Immediately promote medical interns to medical officers after 4 basic rotations. While the administration firmly believes in the promotion of individuals and upward mobility, this ask is not within our control. Interns are required to complete all rotations, then apply to the medical board for licensure. The medical board is an independent regulatory body. The medical officers were encouraged to ask interns to apply to the medical board. Then the minister may ask the board to convene a special meeting for assessment. It must be noted, however, there are many considerations in granting licenses, and it is not unusual for the medical board to propose extension of internship period if or where identified. The second recommendation was for a specific medical officer to return to the A&E department of the Dominica China Friendship Hospital. This medical officer has categorically indicated that he wants to continue his reassignment duties at the Marigot Hospital. The next recommendation was to upgrade 3 medical officers on staff to specialists in their respective fields. I have been advised that management has been in dialogue with the officers since August 2023. To that end, and assessments are currently ongoing. Another suggestion was to consider employment of retired medical officers. 3 were named. We proceeded to report that 1 of the 3 recommended had already been engaged by the hospital on sessional basis. The other officers have not indicated interest to work at the hospital. There are ongoing efforts to engage other retired medical officers, either from the public system or those who previously worked privately. The meeting was further invited to propose names of officers known to be interested in working. However, notwithstanding the expertise and experience that can benefit the health system, attention must be paid to health and fitness, continuing medical education, commitment and availability of these retired officers. Another recommendation from the group of medical officers was the possible closure of health centers in the Marigot Health District as an option to avail more doctors to the hospital system. This action would, however, place the health system at a considerable disadvantage. Primary health care plays a crucial role in providing accessible, preventative health care and also comprehensive care. Among the many benefits of having functioning healthcare includes accessibility to care, prevention, and early intervention, continuity of care, and the relevant cost implications. We must always think along the lines of comprehensive healthcare that aims to maintain a balance between primary and secondary healthcare, ensuring optimal health outcomes for individuals and communities alike. Notwithstanding, we recognize there are opportunities for improving the use of resources within the system. As it stands, there is a minor cases unit embedded in the accident and emergency department of the hospital. Essentially, the hospital is providing a primary healthcare service at the accident and emergency department to address issues like headaches, earaches, rashes, and the common cold. That is why we are embarking on a drive to greater sensitize the public on the use of hospitals versus healthcare centers, so as to distribute traffic with more equity, decrease waiting times at the A&E department, and improve patient outcomes. In addition to these recommendations from the medical officers, we further sensitize them on other initiatives geared at improving their overall circumstance. One area was the engagement of returning medical officers and specialists. Just last week, 2 medical officers were engaged by the system. This is 1 neurosurgeon and 1 pathologist. We have been in talks with an additional medical officer who will likely commence this week. Another initiative is to increase the staff complement by fostering more technical cooperation with bilateral partners. We have been actively pursuing this throughout the year. As a matter of fact, by the end of this year, we expect to have 3 additional radiologists and 2 sonographers to support radiology and imaging. 3, the doctors were sensitized on an ongoing internal restructuring exercise. This was geared at restructuring of the medical department to strengthen upward mobility, leadership and management functions, job descriptions, selection, and the overall recruitment process. I've been advised that a recommendation to appoint medical officers based on available vacant positions within the structure is complete and will be submitted sometime later today. Another important initiative is the adjustment of short-term contracts by some medical officers up to July 31st, 2024. Thereafter, 2-year contracts will be offered after the initial period of assessment of medical officers. Actually, this recommendation was offered by the ministry in a joint meeting just a few weeks ago with a representative of the medical officers, the Dominica Hospital Authority, and the Public Service Union. Management at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital has been in dialogue with officers with respect to the settlement of all gratuity payments on a payment plan. This will commence as soon as all terms have been agreed. In the spirit of resolving these matters with the greatest respect and efficiency, a human resource officer has been hired a few weeks ago to support HR on special assignment to treat with these matters. We implored the medical officers to be patient with the process of strengthening as the focus and efforts have been materializing. We ask specifically for calm in the next 2 weeks, especially as we expected by then to have at least 3 new medical officers available, and that some doctors would return from their approved sick leave. There was also a suggestion for further meetings to provide updates on the overall process. Notwithstanding the ongoing efforts, the group of medical officers, in large measure, reported sick for 2 days. One of them submitted a certified sickness absence for an entire month. As is expected, some services were in fact interrupted. On Wednesday, September 13th, services continued except for surgery, which was cancelled due to certified sick leave by officers prior. On Thursday, September 14th, services continued except for internal medicine outpatient clinics. On Friday, September 15th, most staff, other than those on certified sick leave, reported to work. Over the weekend, including Saturday and Sunday, 16th and 17th, on-call services had been covered. Staff had, in fact, reported to work. On Monday, September 18th, today, all wards are covered, everything is stable, outpatient clinics continue. I want to thank in a special way the doctors who have steadied the ship on Wednesday and Thursday of last week particularly. Notwithstanding the unavailability of a grouping, they have remained committed to ensure they fill in the gap as much as possible to ensure that our citizens receive care. They have had a very difficult 2 days, but they have met the obligation and showed tremendous reason and compassion in that time period. I wish to also thank the district medical officers in primary health care who have also come forward to support the medical officers at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital in this period. They too have showed tremendous sacrifice by serving the districts as normal and then also assisting at the A&E departments, therefore doubling up their duties. This period is one requiring continuous focus, deliberate and urgent actions. Therefore, I would like to again call for calm and good judgment. As the Minister for Health, my responsibility lies with the people of this nation. While I am committed to addressing the concerns of the doctors, it is imperative for all parties involved to be reasonable. From the actions of the 13th, I reached out to the medical officers to express my disappointment of the recent actions, and we scheduled a second meeting to discuss matters further. I believe in the importance of open dialogue, and I am committed to finding long-term solutions that serve the best interest of both the medical officers and the public. Once again, I want to assure you, the public, that we are facing this situation head-on and will do everything necessary to maintain continuity of quality healthcare services. I have faith in the dedication and professionalism of our healthcare professionals, but emphasize the need for collective responsibility and decision-making based on the best interest of our patients. Thank you for your attention, your understanding, and your continuous support as we take the bold steps required to improve in healthcare and service to all in Dominica. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Lavelle, for his comprehensive update and report. I'm sure Carla is quite pleased with the detail provided. I know you have follow-up questions. At this point, we're open to questions. You may pose your questions to the Honorable Prime Minister, Mrs. Mackenzie, and of course the Honorable Lavelle. Carla is already on his feet as usual. Yes, Mr. John Baptist.
Yes, to the Honorable Prime Minister, I want to ask, what was specifically discussed between CARICOM leaders and the Cuban president during the sideline meeting of the G77 and China summit? Also, we want to find out, as it relates to the IRC, what is really going on? Are they a government institution? Because the information that is forthcoming is that this seems to be the one blocking and preventing DOMLEC from, purchasing the generators that is so required. We need some update on that, Honorable Prime Minister. And also, the hospital is without a board. You've said a lot, Mr. Minister, but the hospital is without a board. You need to address us on that, please, sir. Thank you.
And address the summit of G77 plus China that was held in Cuba. And on the sidelines of that meeting, CARICOM had an interface with the President of the Republic of Cuba. The number of issues that were discussed, obviously the upcoming General Assembly and the issues at hand to be addressed. Climate change was an area of focus as well. Recognizing the change in the climatic conditions. It's hotter, and it's hot everywhere in the world, which is a clear sign that climate change and the impact of climate change is active. And of course, we spoke about the international financial system and access to resources to addressing a number of those issues. And what is going to be our strategy going into COP28 from a developing world standpoint? What are the arguments we're going to put forward? And of course, the discussion on Haiti and the current situation in Haiti and what can we do or continue to do to really try to bring some level of law and order in Haiti so that the humanitarian crisis can be addressed by being able to bring in humanitarian support. So these are some of the broad issues that we discussed with the president of Venezuela during our meeting on the sidelines of the G77 plus China summit. In respect to IRC, it's almost like you have me holding the blade, you know. So I'll be careful what I say, you know. But the reality is, I know that there have been some discussions in the past between the IRC and DOMLEC in respect to DOMLEC changing its generators. And based on what I've been told, that the IRC had concerns about the impact it's going to have on consumers, and IRC may have been of the view that some of the generators could still go longer with some maintenance and so forth. The reality is, I personally believe, and of course this is a matter for the board to determine and for management to advise the board and for the experts that we're bringing in who will assist DOMLEC on this. We believe that DOMLEC should seriously look at procuring generators. And we believe that we should have about 10 megawatt of new generators to serve the medium term and even a standby in the future. And so it's a matter for DOMLEC now to meet as a board and management to examine that issue. Obviously, it may not be done in one shot, but it could be done incrementally, because there is no doubt that DOMLEC has to address the medium-term challenges of generation of electricity in Dominica, while we await the coming on stream of geothermal. And so, as I said, I'm not taking over the management and oversight of DOMLEC. I am here as Prime Minister to support DOMLEC, because this has escalated into a national security issue. And when things escalate in such matter, then the Prime Minister has a duty and obligation to get involved. And this is what I've been doing. So we will address the IRC issue. The IRC has a role to play under law, and it will play that role. But the reality is, I don't think there's any option other than procuring those generators. And IRC will do what it has to do, but as Prime Minister, I also will do what I have to do, because I have a greater responsibility to the country. And everybody will play their role, but we have to work on this particular issue. And just to say that, just confirm there'll be 3 experts from Venezuela who will come in tomorrow. So they've identified those persons, and they'll fly in tomorrow to join the one person who is there already from St. Lucia, who will examine the situation for us and give us some quick recommendations on how we can address the situation in the immediate and certainly in the medium term.
Yeah, well, that's where my next question was coming to, in terms of the technicians from Venezuela arriving in Dominica tomorrow. I wanted to find out what will be their terms and reference as they arrive tomorrow. Are they going to be working alongside the technicians we have in Dominica? What exactly are they going to be doing? And Mrs. Mackenzie, can you assure the Dominican public that by this month or next month or before the end of the year, relief will come their way? Can you say categorically that these problems will be resolved before the end of the year? And Mr. Health Minister Cassani Laville, you've told us certain things about the situation with the medical doctors at the hospital, the medical personnel. It appears that is this a crisis that's on? Are you concerned about what is going on right now? And will that matter escalate further? Can you give us the assurance that that matter will be under control very soon? Thank you very much. I will come back stronger in the second round.
Stronger than that?
So Curtis, you were asking regarding the terms of reference for the, okay. Basically what we did was to send to the ambassador the issues that we've been having with some of the units, the failures, the types of failures that the units have suffered and the status of each of the generating units. And as I must be specific, the diesel generating units. And out of that, he would have sent it to Venezuela and gotten experts in that field to deal with that. So they will be working alongside the guy we have here, Elford Felix, the one from St. Lucia, as well as our mechanical engineers or electrical engineers and our technicians. What will they be doing? They will be assessing the state of the diesel generating units at Sugarloaf and at Fonkole. Your second question had to do with assuring the public that by the end of the year that we would, can you exactly repeat yourself so that I can?
Just to find out from you, by this month, by the end of this month or end of the year, that Dominicans will get relief, that the problems will be rectified by then. Can you assure the public, yes, by November, the problems will be over? Well, anyone, this November, December,
I expect some measure of relief by the first week of October, some measure of relief. And certainly, by the end of the year, certainly greater relief than what they will experience by October. That's what I will see. But certainly a great deal of measure of relief by the first week of October, if we get these units, and we expect to get them, because they are government associated generators, 3 megawatts of that. So certainly we can.
You said some measure of relief, so you said some?
Yes, because Curtis, just 10 megawatts of, and I must repeat that, of generation that are past due for retirement. And you can bring them on now and you work them a lot, depending on what happens with the hydro. And they fail because of some factor. Okay? And we can also pray for rain so we can get the hydro.
Mrs. McKenzie, good morning. Not stick around still.
Yeah, oh, I'm staying around.
All right, thank you. Any idea? I know you've been asking for generators for some time. I mean, they asked me to stand, so I'll stand. Sorry. Any idea why you've been blocked by the IRC for not giving the generators that you need?
Okay, I will say, and I think PM answered that the IRC, when it looks at a request for increased generation, will look at several factors, and the regulator would have determined what are some of the reasons why it was not prepared, to bring in generation at a particular point in time. But the Prime Minister of the country has spoken, and I think we should listen and go forward from there.
Who should listen? IRC?
Don't you think you should be addressing the IRC?
Hold on.
Or asking the IRC that question? I would not want to speak for the IRC. I try not to speak for person. I try to speak for DOMLEC. And
Okay,
what I
because
can say to you, I have
Uh-huh.
10 megawatts of generation, which is past due for retirement.
Okay. And you've made it very clear.
Oh, yes, certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the well, as Dominica said, you would have received, you'll have gotten some generation from the hydro. In the first instance, you had a rupture to it because of a landslide, and then you have a drop in rainfall, and therefore the drop in its ability to generate hydro electricity to pass into the grid. Plus, you have some generators that are too old and which require regular maintenance. So you have to find a time where you can get them off the grid and service them, but you do not have backup to allow you to do that without any disruption. So what the board and management has suggested is that government has certain generation capacity, meaning it has some standby generators. So what we did in the first instance, I believe in May or June, I authorized for DOMLEC to take ownership of a generator we had at the stadium, which would provide 0.8 megawatts of generating capacity. So they have taken that. Is that coming on stream?
Yeah, it was brought online on Friday.
It was brought on Friday, because obviously they had to buy some accessories to add to it, to cause it. So 0.8 has been added to this. So we have another generator at the stadium. Financial center has generating capacity. The hospital has generating capacity. And so the intention is to get some of these entities, state entities, off the grid and self-generate, so that you do not have the load on the system. DOMLEC has had an arrangement with private sector suppliers. So for many years, we would have utilized RUS. For many years, 10, 15, 20 years, utilized RUS. Either they generate and pass on the grid, or they get off the grid, so that you can address those issues of the drop when the hydro would have been affected. So there are some private sector entities that DOMLEC is engaging with to get off the grid, generate, and also send back on the grid as well, so that you have, they self-generating, but they also supplying the grid, so you have additional capacity on DOMLEC. So the idea for us is, government standpoint, to provide any technical support to DOMLEC, is to get, and we're not, it is to complement or to assist the existing staff. It's not to displace them or to set them aside. It's to come in to assist them in identifying what can be done in the immediate to help alleviate the load shedding situation, if not eliminate it completely going forward. So if you give us a few days, let the team come in. Work has started. The first gentleman who is there. The Venezuelans will come in tomorrow, God's willing. They'll be working 24 hours a day to look at the situation, what needs to be done. Once we get that those recommendations from those teams, then DOMLEC will seek to implement those recommendations to alleviate the situation in the immediate. Now, in the medium term, it is clear that generators must be purchased. I had already given DOMLEC the go-ahead to order a 2 megawatt based on their advice and so forth, as the majority shareholder, megawatt. And so we will assist, we prepare to assist DOMLEC in the procurement of some of those generators. Once all of the technical details are dealt with, and of course, I met with the board this morning, and I said to the board that they need to take the board needs to meet and to take a decision on what needs to be done in the medium term to address the issue. Then we can have a conversation, because there's a board, DOMLEC is a company, and so forth. So we are here, and I am here as Prime Minister, to assist DOMLEC in addressing the situation of generation of electricity in Dominica. And so we are working on all fronts. I can also tell you that I made a request of 20,000 barrels of diesel from the government of Venezuela, and all efforts are being made to have those sent to Dominica, so that that can be made available to DOMLEC if DOMLEC wants to buy it at a lower than market rate, so that the cost of energy to consumers remain at a lower rate and not increase. So once we get the report from the Venezuelans, I believe that we'll be in a much better position to determine the issues there and what needs to be done, what additional action needs to be taken, to ameliorate the current situation in America. So I think, give us this week, let the team come in, and I believe that we should be in a position to take
I am very happy to hear you say, Prime Minister, IRC have spoken and the Prime Minister has spoken, meaning you have the final word. Now, is there a conflict between the IRC and the government?
There's no conflict.
Because I hear the word independent regulatory commission, which
Yeah.
it means that they're independent.
Yeah. Well,
Or they're supposed to be.
Well,
So now the Prime Minister has given the final word. That's just what I want to hear that from you.
Well,
so we have electricity.
Well, we have an independent regulatory commission, and they would determine the tariffs and so forth to be determined to be charged by DOMLEC. There is no doubt that this matter has been escalated, and it is absolutely important that the government intervenes. And this is what the government is doing. I'm not displacing the management and the board of DOMLEC. I do not want to do that. But this matter is affecting every single citizen in our country. And if a matter is affecting every single citizen in our country, then the Prime Minister has to act, and the Prime Minister will act. So the IRC has a role to play, and the Prime Minister has a role to play. And the Prime Minister will exercise his function as Prime Minister of the country on this matter. So I hope my response satisfies your question. It did, thank you.
Thank you. I think, Carla, you mentioned that the hospital